What leads a married woman to betray her vows? A woman with a comfortable home, a caring husband, and 2 lovely children. After 15 years of what seemed like a fulfilling marriage, I couldn't fathom the reason behind it. As I pored over the private investigator's report and glanced at the accompanying photos, the question echoed in my mind: why? The only explanation I could muster was a lapse in mental judgment. Did she still love me? According to the report, their encounters were purely physical. It baffled me how any sane woman would risk everything she had for fleeting moments of pleasure. Mental illness seemed like the only plausible explanation as tears streamed down my face. The PI had granted me solitude in an empty office to process the report, knowing the emotions it would stir. I examined the images, witnessing what appeared to be shameless acts of infidelity. The man she was involved with was Chad Wilkins, a colleague from the real estate office where she worked. They had been meeting at a Motel 6 near the interstate interchange and occasionally at our own home in the guest bedroom. The PI had captured evidence of their liaisons, ensuring there would be no privacy concerns in divorce court. After observing them entering our home for the first time, he had installed discrete cameras and audio equipment in various rooms. Now, I faced the daunting task of confronting her and deciding on the next steps. Divorce seemed inevitable. I couldn't bring myself to forgive her betrayal. Despite considering myself a Christian, the images depicted such disregard for our marriage that forgiveness felt unattainable. My name is Frank Newland. I'm 43 years old, and I manage a supermarket. The demands of my job sometimes kept me away from home for long hours, possibly contributing to my wife's infidelity. However, I refused to accept it as a justification for her actions. My wife, Joan, aged 42, and I met in college, and from our first date, she was the only woman for me. I had trusted and loved her throughout our marriage. Joan worked as a real estate agent, often spending time outside the office like Chad, which provided them with opportunities for their affair. Chad, roughly our age, was married to Mona, a kind woman, and they too had 2 children around the same ages as ours. I had met them at company events and always considered them a respectable family. I envisioned a divorce handled amicably, citing irreconcilable differences. Given our similar incomes, there should be no need for alimony. If our son, Jeremy, 14, lived with me and our daughter, Kim, 12, stayed with Joan, there would be no child support. The house would be sold, and assets split evenly. However, if Joan contested this, I would have no choice but to pursue divorce on grounds of adultery, armed with the evidence collected by the PI. I pondered the repercussions of exposing Chad's affair to his family, yet I hadn't devised a plan for addressing that dilemma. Perhaps, at the appropriate moment, I would provide his wife with the evidence I possessed and allow her to make her own decisions. I knew it would be as devastating for her as it was for me, but she deserved to understand the truth about her husband. Moreover, I sought some form of retribution for the havoc he had wreaked upon my own family. Just then, a knock interrupted my thoughts, and the private investigator entered the room. "How are you holding up, Mr. Newland? Any questions about the findings?" he inquired. "No, I think I've seen enough." "It's all as I expected," I replied somberly. "Would you like to review the videos or listen to the audio recordings? It might provide further insight into the situation," he offered. "No, thank you. I don't think I could handle any more than what the photos reveal," I declined, feeling overwhelmed by what I had already witnessed. I rose from my seat, ready to depart. As I left, I settled my remaining dues with the PI and took the report, along with the accompanying photos, audio recordings, and videos, with me. I had taken the afternoon off from work, leaving the assistant manager in charge. I decided to spend some time alone at a nearby park, reflecting on the events that had led to the discovery of my wife's infidelity. I couldn't bear to return to our home, which now felt devoid of its warmth and comfort. Nevertheless, I resolved to maintain a facade of normalcy for the sake of our children, who deserved the stability of a secure environment. Joan, my wife, was still an attractive woman who maintained her figure through exercise and her job-related activities. While she had gained some weight after giving birth to our children, she had recently shed a few pounds, attributing it to a new diet. She remained appealing to me, and our intimate life had been fulfilling, albeit conventional, until a few weeks ago. Although I had considered discussing ways to spice up our sex life, I hesitated, fearing her reaction to my fantasies. In retrospect, I realized that the decline in our intimacy coincided with the days she had been seeing Chad. However, she continued to exhibit affection toward me on other occasions, which left me perplexed. It wasn't until I stumbled upon a bank statement showing charges to a local motel that I became suspicious and decided to investigate further, eventually leading to the PI's report. Despite the considerable expense and the depletion of our retirement savings, I deemed it necessary to gather evidence of her infidelity before confronting her. The revelation was unsettling, especially considering her seemingly unchanged demeanor toward me amidst her affair. Her duplicity and lack of regard for our marriage demanded a resolution. As I sat in the park, a place we had frequented with our children throughout their upbringing, my thoughts traced back over the 15 years of what I had believed to be an ideal marriage. Recollections of joyous moments intermingled with occasional challenges flooded my mind. How could she have relinquished it all so effortlessly? Tears welled up in my eyes, and I quietly sobbed with my head against the headrest, seeking solace in the park's tranquility until I regained composure. Contemplating the possibility of her suffering from a mental illness, another question emerged: could I stand by her side? Our wedding vows encompassed the commitment to endure both health and sickness, and mental illness fell within the realm of sickness. Could I honor that vow if she terminated her affair? Yet, the marriage vows also dictated forsaking all others, a pledge she had unmistakably broken. I concluded that even though her actions might be influenced by an illness, trust had been irreparably shattered, and without trust, cohabitation was untenable. Balancing her needs and the demands of my job seemed insurmountable. Thus, divorce emerged as the only viable solution. Contemplating the impending break, my priority was minimizing the impact on our children and avoiding a major confrontation with her. First, I needed to consult a divorce attorney. Dialing our attorney using my cell, I explained my intentions, and Jerry, taken aback, provided me with a recommendation: Ron Jenkins. Before hanging up, I requested Jerry to revise my will, excluding Joan and designating our children as the sole beneficiaries. I promptly scheduled an appointment with the divorce attorney for the next morning and decided to maintain a semblance of normalcy for a few more days. Returning home, Joan had not yet arrived, but our kids were diligently tackling their homework. Their disciplined routine impressed me, and I hugged Kim, feeling a pang of sadness at the impending separation. "Dad, why are you home so early?" Kim inquired. "I had some business to attend to, sweetheart, and instead of returning to the store afterward, I thought I'd check up on you guys." She grinned playfully, expressing their diligent work ethic, but beneath my pride, I knew I would miss her when I parted ways with her mother. Sure, hard workers indeed. Is your mother back yet?" "No, she called and mentioned a showing. She'll be a bit late, bringing Chinese for dinner." "Sounds good. Is Jeremy upstairs?" "Yeah." As I headed upstairs and knocked on Jeremy's door, I wondered if Joan had rendezvoused with Chad at Motel 6 that afternoon. Having terminated the services of the private investigator, I no longer tracked her affair as meticulously as before. Jeremy greeted me as I ruffled his hair and embraced him. "What's up, Dad?" "Nothing much, just letting you know I'm home." "How's school?" "Good. No complaints." After a brief conversation, I descended the stairs, fixing myself a scotch on the rocks while awaiting Joan's return. She entered half an hour later, looking fatigued, pale, and somewhat grayish. Her recent weight loss caused her dress to hang a bit loosely. Curiously, she hadn't mentioned any diet plans. Observing her bring Chinese food into the kitchen and embrace Kim, I waited for her to call Jeremy down for dinner. Then, she turned to me, a radiant smile illuminating her face. "How was my darling husband's day?" she asked, planting a kiss on my cheek. "Fine," I responded, reciprocating with a kiss on hers. "Are we grouchy about something today?" she inquired, a questioning look etched on her face. "No, I'm fine, honey. Just had a busy day," I responded, attempting to feign cheerfulness. She regarded me with an odd expression, almost resembling guilt, before turning back into the kitchen. Finishing my scotch, I joined her to set the table while Kim poured water glasses. Despite her seemingly genuine affection, I couldn't shake off the confusion regarding her sudden need for extramarital affairs, jeopardizing our marriage. Nonetheless, such ponderings would soon become irrelevant, as the divorce proceedings would proceed regardless of her reasons for adultery. We enjoyed a pleasant meal together, during which Joan recounted the details of the delayed showing. Whether it was an authentic occurrence or an indulgence with her lover, I remained indifferent, concealing my inner turmoil for the children's sake. As the kids cleaned up the kitchen and Joan retired upstairs to change into more comfortable attire, I retreated to the family room to watch the news. The sound of the shower upstairs prompted me to speculate if she was cleansing herself of her lover's scent in preparation for a guilty encounter with me later that night. Frustrated by our affair, thoughts of suitable retribution began to simmer within me. That night, when she attempted to initiate intimacy, I rebuffed her advances and turned away, pretending to be asleep. I could sense her disappointment as she sighed and turned aside. The following morning, I arose early and left the house before the rest of the family was awake, leaving a note explaining an urgent work project that demanded my immediate attention. Interacting with Joan had become increasingly challenging, and I needed some time away. Upon arriving at work, I managed to accomplish a few tasks before heading to my appointment with the divorce lawyer, bringing along the evidence gathered by the private investigator. The lawyer's secretary promptly ushered me into his office, and after introductions, I outlined my intentions for a divorce. Reviewing the evidence, the lawyer concurred that my plan was reasonable and could be executed smoothly if Joan agreed. However, if she contested, the evidence would serve as compelling leverage. I inquired about the timeline for serving Joan with the divorce papers, and he indicated it would take a couple of days to prepare the necessary documents, file them at the courthouse, and arrange for service. I requested that one of the photos of her and Chad be included with the papers to convey the reason for the divorce immediately. He assured me of this and promised to notify me once the papers were ready. With that settled, I left his office and headed home. Now, I had to contemplate how to deliver the news to Jeremy and Kim. I was certain that the sudden breakup of our family would devastate them. I couldn't warn them beforehand because Joan would catch wind of it before being served, and part of my revenge involved surprising her at the real estate office with the divorce papers. The element of shock, coupled with the notice of divorce, might make her realize the gravity of her actions. It could also serve as a wake-up call for Chad, hinting at trouble in his own marriage if he was present or learned about it. However, my primary concern was the well-being of the kids, and I needed to find a gentle way to break the news to them. The rest of the day was spent searching for a furnished apartment where I could temporarily reside until finding a more permanent solution. After securing one with a deposit, I headed home. Joan was there, preparing dinner. Upon seeing me, she smiled and greeted me warmly with a kiss. I marveled at her acting skills, but decided to reciprocate with equal passion. "Easy there, big boy. Wait until tonight, and I'll give you what you're looking for," she teased, as Kim expressed her disgust from the dining room table where she was doing her homework. "Sorry, honey." Mom got carried away for a moment, Joan laughed, acknowledging her daughter's reaction. I wondered if I could go through with making love to her, but I couldn't risk arousing suspicion by refusing her advances 2 nights in a row. That night, as we prepared for bed, I felt apprehensive. She initiated intimacy eagerly, and although our lovemaking was more spirited than usual, it lacked the uninhibited passion I had seen in the pictures with Chad. Afterward, she professed her love for me, but I couldn't help feeling cynical about her sincerity. The following day and night mirrored the previous one, with me going to great lengths to please her. When it was over, she showered me with compliments, declaring me the greatest lover in the world. I couldn't let her words pass without a response. "I love you too, sweetheart, but how can you claim I'm the greatest lover in the world? Have you been involved with other men?" I asked, confronting her with my suspicions. She hesitated before responding, seemingly searching for the right words. "You're the only one, my darling." I said that because I couldn't imagine a better experience, she replied. Her quick response impressed me, but I couldn't shake off the brewing resentment. As I drifted off to sleep, she surprised me with a request for a private discussion on Saturday morning. "Frank," she called out. "Yeah?" I answered. "Can we have some time alone on Saturday morning? I need to talk to you." I'll take the kids to my parents' place, and we can have a discussion, she explained. I agreed, curious about her intentions. However, I had made up my mind about the divorce, so her confession would be too late. The next morning, I woke up early and headed to IHOP for breakfast, avoiding any interaction with Joan. Later, at work, I checked on the status of the divorce filings and arranged for them to be served on Joan at 3 p.m. I then took the rest of the day off, instructing my secretary to inform my wife that I was out on business if she called. With Joan at work and the kids at school, I began moving my personal belongings into a rented truck. When a neighbor, Alice, inquired about the commotion, I explained that I was moving out due to Joan's infidelity. Knowing Alice's penchant for gossip, I left her with the task of spreading the news. After unloading at the apartment, I handled financial matters, transferring half of our household account funds to my own account. Then, I spent time updating insurance and other documents. At 2:30, I waited outside the kids' school to pick them up. It took a few minutes to pick up the kids before they boarded the school bus. They seemed puzzled by my presence as we headed home. "Why are you picking us up, Dad? What's going on?" Kim asked. "I'll explain in a minute, honey," I said, pulling into the park near our house and parking the car. Kim sat beside me in the front seat, while Jeremy was in the back, both looking confused. "It's difficult for me to say this, but I've left your mother. You'll be living with her while we figure out custody arrangements, but I have my own apartment now and won't be living at home anymore," I explained. "Why, Daddy?" Kim cried, tears welling up in her eyes. "Why can't you be with us anymore?" Jeremy just muttered, "Oh, shit," and turned away to hide his tears. "I'm really sorry, guys, and I can't fully explain the reasons. But know that we both love you and will always be there for you. You need to support your mother, but our marriage is beyond repair. We'll still be your parents, but not together," I said, trying to comfort Kim as she openly wept. I reached over the console to hug her, hating to see her cry. After some time, I drove them to the house where I no longer lived. Before leaving, I hugged them both tightly, tears streaming down all our faces. "Go do your homework and keep yourselves occupied. Your mother will be home soon, and she might not be happy. Be prepared to support her. You can call me on your cells if you need anything, and I'll check in on you," I said, trying to reassure them. "I'm sorry about this, but sometimes things happen beyond our control." Leaving them behind, I headed to my apartment. Glancing at my watch, I realized it was just past 3 p.m. Joan should be receiving the divorce papers by now. Around 5 p.m., my cell phone rang, showing my in-law's number. Anxiously, I answered. "Hello?" I said. "Frank?" It was my father-in-law, Sam. "Yeah, Sam. What's up?" "Frank, Joan is in the hospital." "The hospital?" "Yeah, she collapsed at work after they served her with the divorce papers. She called us." "What's happening, Frank?" "Sam, she's been unfaithful, and I have proof," I explained, feeling a mix of emotions. "Oh, damn. That's unlike her. I have evidence from the PI, photos, videos, everything. This will devastate her mother." "How is Joan doing?" "She's in shock, but there's more. She's dying," Sam revealed. The words hit me like a ton of bricks, and I struggled to comprehend. "What do you mean she's dying?" I asked, stunned. "She's been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and it's terminal. They're giving her just a few more weeks," Sam explained. "Oh my God, I had no idea," I said, feeling a wave of shock. "How long has she known?" "She mentioned about 3 months, but she's heavily sedated. I think she wants to see you. Can you come to the hospital?" Sam asked. "I'll be there as soon as I can, but I need to check on the kids first." "They're home alone," I replied, feeling torn. "You've already left her, haven't you?" Sam asked. "Yeah, I had plans," I admitted. "I wanted her to feel the pain she caused me. I loved and trusted her. Breaking our vows is unforgivable." "I understand," Sam said. "I need to get to the house now. Do you know how long they'll keep her there? I inquired. She'll stay overnight for observation, Sam replied. Can I bring the kids to see her this evening? I asked. She prefers they stay away until tomorrow when she'll be going home. She should be in a better state by then, Sam explained. I'm not sure what to do now. I'll stay with the kids tonight and talk to her tomorrow, I decided. All right, I'll let her know. We'll be here until she falls asleep, Sam assured me. After hanging up, I drove back home. As I approached, Kim called me on her cell. Daddy, where's Mommy? She asked anxiously. I'm on my way home, honey. I'll explain everything when I get there, I reassured her. Pulling into the driveway, Kim ran out to greet me while Jeremy watched from the doorway. Mommy's in the hospital, sweetheart. She fainted, but she's okay. We'll see her tomorrow, I explained, holding Kim's hand as we went inside. Are you coming back home, Dad? Jeremy asked. I may have to, son. You both go to school tomorrow, and we'll talk more when your mom comes home, I replied, trying to reassure him. After dinner at our favorite pizza place, we returned home. I called Sam to check on Joan, and he said she was resting comfortably. Before the kids went to bed, Jeremy asked about my return. I might be back, Jeremy. Let's see how things go tomorrow, I said, contemplating the uncertain future ahead. Kim, who had been listening, asked, Do you still love Mom, Dad? I've always loved your mom, honey. Something made it so I couldn't stay here anymore, but I may have to come back to help her for a while, I replied. Her smile at my response warmed my heart. I hugged them both before they went to their rooms. After they left, I poured myself a drink and sat in front of the TV, staring at the blank screen for a while. Yes, I would have to come back home. If she was dying, she wouldn't be able to manage the house and the kids alone. We needed to discuss living arrangements before the kids got home tomorrow. I wondered if there was a connection between her affair and the news of her shortened lifespan. Perhaps I would finally find out why. There were many things I needed to do, like canceling the divorce proceedings. Pursuing a divorce with a terminally ill person made no sense. I also had to give up the apartment. Why hadn't she told me about her illness? We might have been able to work something out. The thought of losing her suddenly made me very sad. Maybe it was the alcohol, but I felt overwhelmed with grief. In my rush for revenge, I hadn't talked to her or confronted her. Now, I needed to find out why. Despite her actions breaking our wedding vows, I couldn't just throw her out. I still had responsibilities as a fellow human being and a parent. The next morning, I woke up early and got the kids ready for school. Kim was eager to see her mother when she got home. Have you heard anything about Mom this morning, Daddy? Kim asked. I haven't had a chance to call yet, honey. If there were any issues, they would have called us. Is everything ready for school? I replied. Yes, it's all in my backpack, Kim confirmed. Okay, let's get going then. The bus will be here soon. Are you ready, Je? I asked Jeremy. Yeah, I'm ready, Jeremy replied. All right, have a good day. See you later, I said as they left. Once they were gone, I stood on the porch until the bus arrived, then went back inside. Before picking up Joan, I needed to bring my belongings back home. I called the truck rental place and reserved the same truck, then headed there to pick it up. It took less than 2 hours to move my stuff back home. After showering and changing clothes, I returned the truck and picked up my car. Finally, I headed to the hospital to pick up Joan. Joan was waiting for me in the hospital lobby, dressed and sitting in a wheelchair with her parents beside her. Seeing her, my heart sank. She looked 10 years older since yesterday morning, her eyes red and swollen from crying, her complexion almost grayish-yellow. Despite this, I composed myself and refrained from embracing her. Are you ready to go? I asked gently. Yes, they released me a little while ago. I've been waiting for you, she sobbed. Let's go then, I said, trying to keep my voice calm, not wanting a scene in the hospital lobby. We'll talk more at home. Sam, her father, spoke up. She's our daughter, but she's your wife. If your marriage is over, we'd like to have her back with us. I understand, Sam, I replied, acknowledging my responsibilities as a husband despite Joan's breach of our marriage vows. We'll discuss this at home. Okay, Frank. I'll wheel her out when you get back with your car, Sam said. Thank you, I replied, hurrying out to get my car. As we drove home, Joan started to speak. Frank, I'm so sorry. I know nothing can express how sorry I am. Let's talk about it at home, I said, cutting her off gently. We'll have time to discuss everything. Are you going to leave me, Frank? She asked. No, not if you're as sick as your dad says, I replied. We'll stay together, but we need to talk about what happened and why. Joan sat quietly, tears streaming down her face, as we drove in silence until we reached home. I helped her inside and up to our bedroom, where she wanted to shower and change before talking. While she did that, I prepared lunch for us. After lunch, we sat at the kitchen table facing each other. Go ahead, Joan. I want to hear it before the kids get home, I said. Okay, she began. About 3 months ago, I started having stomach pains that I thought were indigestion. After a couple of weeks, the pain persisted, so I went to see our family doctor without telling you. He ordered tests and a CT scan. When he got the results, he referred me to an internist who did more tests and diagnosed me with pancreatic cancer. It's advanced, and there's not much they can do. I only have a few weeks to live. I was planning to tell you this Saturday. It was incredibly difficult for me to come to terms with the idea of leaving you and the kids, Kim and Jeremy. I felt lost, unsure of what to do or how to break the news to you all. I also grappled with the realization that I was still young and hadn't fully experienced life yet. At times when you weren't around, I found myself browsing X-rated websites on the computer, drawn to certain sexual acts that aroused me. I had desires that I never shared with you, fearing you might lose respect for me. I wanted your memory of me to remain untainted, without any perception of me being promiscuous. I was torn, clouded by the urgency of time ticking away. I wanted to explore my sexuality before it was too late, but I should have confided in you. I didn't want you to remember me as anything less than virtuous. I knew Chad was interested in pornography, as I overheard him discussing it with colleagues at the office. So, I mustered the courage to ask him about it, and he admitted to having a collection of videos. One day, we watched several X-rated videos together at his place, which excited me. We became intimate, hoping it would fulfill my fantasies. We even used our guest room a few times, but I never let him into our bed. However, it never lived up to what I had hoped for, and I eventually realized it wasn't what I wanted. The last time we were together, I tried to make it like the videos, but I couldn't enjoy it. I acknowledged that my actions were selfish and disregarded you and our children. When I received the news of my terminal illness, I became consumed by my own thoughts and desires. Now, I sincerely apologize and beg for the chance to return home and spend my remaining time with my family. I know I can never fully make amends for what I've done, and I don't expect your forgiveness, but I hope for it someday. I've lost the respect I tried to maintain because of my actions. I thought I could keep my affair a secret and continue to act as I did because I feared the consequences if you found out. I'm willing to accept any punishment you see fit, as I need to cleanse my soul of the sins I've committed. You are the one I love and respect above all, and I need your judgment for my redemption. After she finished speaking, I sat in silence for a few moments, contemplating her words. She kept her gaze fixed on the table, awaiting my response. Finally, I gathered my thoughts and prepared to address her heartfelt confession. Joan, I must admit I'm deeply disappointed by your actions and your decision to keep us out of your thoughts and life. I understand the shock you experienced upon learning about your limited time, but shutting yourself off from me because you feared I'd disapprove is difficult for me to comprehend. I would have supported you in anything you desired. Our love should have surpassed any hesitation or fear. We became one when we married, and love should have been the bond that kept us united. I should have been there to support you in your desires. It's ironic now, but there were things I wanted to explore with you in bed, fearing rejection and loss of respect. It's clear now that we shared similar desires, but our lack of communication led us to this point. Now, looking forward, I want you to stay here with us as long as you can. Your mistake is significant, and forgiveness is a struggle for me, but understanding the why behind your actions may help me come to terms with it. Perhaps you should stay in the guest room for a while until things settle. I'll likely need to hire someone to help with household chores, and we may need to adjust living arrangements as your health declines. But we'll handle that when the time comes. Thank you, Frank. I appreciate being with my family, and I'll try not to burden you. You won't be a burden. It's our duty to support you in every way. You're my wife and their mother, and we'll spare no effort or expense to ensure your comfort during the time you have left. Thank you, honey, she said, reaching across the table to hold my hand. When the kids learn about your condition, it will be tough on them, especially since they're already dealing with the news of our separation. We'll have a family meeting to discuss everything when they get home from school. Her face reflected sadness as she considered our children. We have to do it, I suppose. They're old enough, but it'll still be hard, especially for Kim, she said, squeezing my hand gently. I didn't pull away. The family meeting took place shortly after the kids returned from school. Kim was overjoyed to have her mother back home, while Jeremy seemed relieved. They both asked if we were still upset with each other and if Mom was back for good. We assured them that Mom was indeed back home for good, but we still had some issues to work out, and she would be staying in the guest room for a while. We promised them that we were working on resolving the problems, and they seemed satisfied. It fell on me to initiate the family discussion, a conversation that wouldn't be easy but was necessary for us to move forward. You know, there are some changes we need to talk about. Mom won't be going back to work, she'll be staying home, and we'll all need to pitch in to help her. We're planning to hire someone to assist when I'm at work and you're in school, so she won't be alone. Kim, looking puzzled at first, was the first to speak up. Are you sick, Mom? Joan, sitting beside Kim, wrapped her arm around her. Yes, sweetheart, I am, and it's going to get worse. Kim's eyes widened as she processed her mother's words. What is it, Mom? It's cancer, baby, and it's not curable. You're not going to get better? Understanding dawned on Kim's face, and I heard Jeremy mutter, "Oh shit." Tears welled up in Kim's eyes and streamed down her cheeks. Are you going to die, Mom? Yes, baby, I am. We all have to go someday, and Mommy's turn is coming early. God is calling me home to be with him. Kim turned and buried her face in Joan's shoulder, wrapping her arms around her neck and sobbing. I don't want you to die. You can't die. I won't let you. Joan held Kim tightly as I turned to Jeremy. Tears streamed down his face as I embraced him. What's wrong with her? He choked out. She has cancer, pancreatic cancer. There's no cure. For the next hour, there was a mix of tears and prayers before some semblance of acceptance settled in. Kim refused to believe her mother was leaving her, and I knew she'd need strong female support when Joan was gone. In an attempt to restore some sense of normalcy, I ordered pizza. Kim clung to her mother, sobbing, as we waited for it to arrive. I was amazed at Joan's strength as she comforted Kim, and tears flowed down my cheeks too. After a couple of days, we reached a level of acceptance. Our extended family was informed, and they gathered to offer support. Joan's mother, Marge, moved in to take charge of the household. Joan had to give up the guest room for her, and I realized my previous actions were petty revenge against a terminally ill woman. I couldn't justify it anymore. The first night back together was unforgettable. Freed from the inhibitions that had haunted us throughout our marriage, Joan was deeply remorseful and eager to make it special for me. I struggled with conflicting emotions, knowing she had shared intimate moments with another man while married to me. Yet, considering the limited time she had left and our years of love and commitment, I decided to grant her the passionate intimacy and love she craved. As she entered our bed, her body slimmer but still enticing, a tender kiss quickly escalated into fervent passion. Our foreplay was prolonged and intense, and when she performed oral sex on me, it was an electrifying and sensual experience. Despite my surprise when I climaxed unexpectedly, she emerged with a smile, licking her lips before engaging in another passionate kiss. The taste of me lingered in her mouth, heightening the eroticism of the moment as I eagerly reciprocated. Her gasping breaths and tears concerned me, but she reassured me not to stop, expressing her overwhelming desire for intimacy. I smiled, promising to fulfill her desires, and proceeded to explore her body with fervent devotion, paying homage to each part before reaching my ultimate destination. Her ecstatic moans filled the room as my tongue delved between her thighs, her hands urging me closer as I continued my intimate caresses. With each movement, her pleasure intensified, culminating in a powerful climax that left her trembling with satisfaction. Gazing up at her adoring expression, I was filled with awe and tenderness. "That was incredible," she murmured, urging me to join her in the final act of passion. With a renewed sense of intimacy and love, I eagerly complied, fulfilling her deepest desires with a tenderness born of love and devotion. We exchanged words of passion and intimacy during our lovemaking, shedding all inhibitions as our desires synchronized in a rush toward mutual satisfaction. With one thrust, I entered her wet warmth, eliciting a groan as she wrapped her legs around me. Our movements became rhythmic, her cries echoing with each thrust as she tightened her hold on me in anticipation of climax. As her body tensed, I quickened my pace, aiming to synchronize our orgasms, and we were both fortunate as our release coincided, filling the room with a crescendo of pleasure. As we lay intertwined, basking in the afterglow, I gently kissed her lips, eliciting tears from her. "My darling husband," she sobbed, overwhelmed by the pleasure I had given her. "I was foolish not to share my fantasies with you. I'm so sorry." "My love, I share in the blame," I reassured her, regretting my own silence about my desires. "Let's move forward without dwelling on the past and cherish the time we have together." In the following weeks, we shared similar moments of intimacy, indulging in each other's desires. However, as her strength waned due to the advancing cancer, our encounters became less frequent. I held her close as she slept, grappling with regrets for not sharing our fantasies sooner and lamenting the time we had lost. Joan lived for another month, heavily sedated in her final days until she peacefully passed away, with me by her side. Despite anticipating her death, the grief lingered, and Marge, her mother, provided support in the aftermath. With her departure, I hired a housekeeper to assist with daily chores, and the children and I managed household tasks together. Before her passing, Joan urged me to find another wife for Kim's sake and my own companionship. I am still searching, contemplating whether to disrupt Chad's family for a chance at happiness. For now, I wait, honoring Joan's wishes while navigating life's uncertainties. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.